Okay, how to run your first ultramarathon. Now, I've got a friend at the moment who's doing an ultramarathon. He's running 69K in a few weeks and he is petrified. And he's asking me pretty much every day, what am I supposed to do? What is different? And that's the main question I get asked about ultra running. What is different from marathon training? When you step up from marathon to ultramarathon, what is different? And the fun thing is, nothing much changes. So all you're trying to do, depending on whether you're kind of running an ultramarathon in the trails or it's a flat 50K or flat 100K, the training for a 50K is pretty much identical to training for a marathon. Your long run wants to be a little bit higher. So maybe instead of running 20 miles or 22 miles for your top long run or your longest long run, you'd run the full marathon distance. I would advocate that you want to run 32, 33 miles so that you can easily handle the distance and you're putting yourself in a position where you can race, the ultra marathon, you can race the 50K. Exactly the same to a certain point for ultra marathon running if it's more than 50K. So for a 70K race, I'm never going to run the distance. When I run 70K, and there's a lot of nice little 70Ks, it's only 45 miles or 44 miles. It's a great distance to move up to, and it's a great test of yourself because you're going to come up against that wall and you're going to come up against the greater need to make sure that you're fueled properly. Because if you're fueling properly every hour, and that starts from the first 20 minutes, the first 40 minutes, then if you've got that dialed in, you can run pretty much almost forever because you're going to keep putting petrol in your engine, you're going to keep fueled, and therefore it's only a case of the training. So whenever I'm running a 70K or 100K, I will do a 50K long run, and that will be my longest run. So it will be longer than the typical marathon runners run. Most marathon training plans, if you grab them off the internet, will tell you to do 20 or 22 miles, 30 to 35K, 30 to 33K for the long run. That's what they'll tell you to do. It's not a great deal difference if you're training for an ultra marathon. If it's 70 to 100K, you're not going to be running 65, 80K unless you're absolutely elite. And what I'd say, a great way to build towards the 80K is to put something in the diary, another race in the diary that is 60 to 80K. So if you're going to be running that distance, don't do it on your own. Although I've seen people do this, and I think it's great for mentality, it's great for the head to be able to be out there for a long period of time or be out there just with the cyclist who's got your drinks and stuff for you. You get involved in another race. And then the question is, okay, if you've got 100K in 12 weeks, when should you be doing the 60K race or the 80K race? It's a 50-mile race. Again, great distance where you can really push it. It's almost a double marathon, but it's not going to kill you. None of these distances are going to kill you. But if I was doing 100K, what I do is I get a nice 60 to 70K race in the diary and do it at 90%. So don't go all out, so you need a long recovery afterwards. And then I'd run, whenever I've done my fastest 100Ks, they've always been where I've done plenty of marathons. When I say plenty, 2-3 marathons and then a couple of 50Ks. So I know that I can quite easily cruise to 50K at race pace or a bit quicker, and then the 100K feels very, very easy. And this is it's the same in marathon running. You want the first half or the first 20 miles to feel comfortable, the first 33K. You want in a marathon for the last 10K for you to dig in. With 100K, you want to be coasting to 65 to ideally 80K. And a lot of 100K runners, specialists, and especially on the road, when we're doing 100K British Championships or the 100K World Championships, a lot of people will argue whether it's the first 65K and the race starts with 35K to go, and a lot of people will say the race starts with 20K to go. Depends on how well you're fueled and how well you're trained. I would argue that the race is going to start right in that last 1 to 2 hours when you've already been running for 4 hours at the elite end, and you then find out who you really are, especially if you're not used to running that distance. So that kind of fatigue, that continuous fatigue or accumulated fatigue, and running on not dead legs, but running on dull legs, I like to say, comes with experience. And if you can get in a 50 to 60 to 70k race or 80k race, nice 50-mile race before the 100k, and do it at 90%, you're going to get those feelings. Back-to-back runs, back-to-back long runs, I'm not for them at all. For the very reason, I'll make another video about this, for the very reason people like to, again, emulate that fatigue in the last 20k or the last 40k of 100k or the last couple of hours of an ultra marathon. What you're essentially doing, it's a bit like training chest in the gym twice, 2 days in a row. You're micro-tearing all those muscle fibers by going long. You're putting stress on your body. And then the very next day, you're going out and you're doing it again. It's a recipe for disaster. You're in the high-risk zone of getting injured. It's not a good strategy. It's not going to work long-term. And for me, it's not a smart strategy. Does it work? This is the problem. Does it work for some people? It has worked for some people on certain occasions. And then people think, oh, that must be the secret. There's no secret. What you're training to do, whether you're training for a marathon or an ultra marathon, you're training to go as fast as you possibly can on one day. You're not training for the Tour de France to be as fast as you can for 21 continuous days. You're training to be as fast as you can on one morning. So don't forget that, because I think we can get tied into, okay, what's your weekly volume, what's your monthly volume, all that kind of stuff. You want to dial in your interval training to build that speed, to make your race pace feel like you're in second gear. And then you want to dial in that long run so that your body is ready to go long, and it's there, you're putting yourself in a position where you're ready to race the race instead of just trying to kind of survive. So good luck with that. So the main difference, in short, the main difference is the long run will go a bit longer. And ideally you will do multiple of those long runs. Ideally get involved in marathons, use races as training, but make sure you're disciplined enough to do them at 80 or 90% of your maximum effort. Use those cautiously and the right times, at least 5-6 weeks before the main race, the main dance that you're trying to get prepared for. And then, yeah, go at it. Get your hat in the ring. Like, it's amazing kind of when I speak to marathon runners that they think 100k, oh wow, it's so long. It's not. It really, really isn't. If you're capable of running 2.5, 3 hours, 4 hours for the marathon, you can run 100k. You can run 100k. If you can run a marathon, you can run 100k. For me, if you can run 10k, you can run a marathon. It's just a case of training that endurance and stamina and you're setting yourself up for success so that you can get an optimal race day result. Good luck. Rock it.